Welcome to tonight's presentation, The 20th Century, the Age of Isms and Schisms. Wars, revolutions, social upheavals, displacement of peoples, computers and automation, all have proceeded at such a pace that 20th century men and women like ourselves have difficulty keeping up with ourselves. And so tonight we're going to start on a pathway of technology, a pathway of machinery, a pathway of very, very different sounding music. And why is this? And where is it coming from? So let me back it up just a little bit. A famous composer of the 20th century, an American composer, Aaron Copland, who died in 1990, says this: "The entire history of modern music may be said to be a history of the gradual pull away from the German musical tradition of the past century." And that's exactly where I stopped the last class. We were talking about Richard Wagner, right? Died in 1883. And his music was the culmination of romantic art. He influenced poets and playwrights and so many in the art world. And so as we pull away from this German musical tradition, we are going to see things break apart. Wagner was already starting that. He changed the face of music. He changed the face of opera, called it a music drama. He started blurring the lines of tonality, and that's something we're going to see break apart. This major-minor system that we have set up now for a very long time is going to start to fall apart. And as we know, we are going straight for 2 world wars, communism, Nazism within the 20th century. If we all add all of this mix in together, and I've said it before, what is going on around everyone, what's going on within everyone, what you're going to have is some very, very explosive emotions. Explosive emotions that we can no longer within music use these consonances. So what we're going to hear, and you're going to have to be a little bit more patient, I think, with this music than anything else we've heard, because this century is called, a composer, I believe it was Stravinsky, who said it's the emancipation of dissonance. Dissonance will come to the forefront, and we will see dissonance as well within the visual arts. So the 19th century, right, the 19th century somehow had been able to contain the forces of what? Liberty, equality, authority, democracy, dictatorship, individualism, collectivism, free enterprise, economic monopolies, scientific advances, and traditional religious beliefs, freedom of thought, and anti-intellectual tendencies. Well, that's a lot. That's a mouthful. In the 20th century, however, we will see that what I have just said is going to explode. And it's going to explode in disputes that break out into open conflict. And we are going to talk about music before World War I, between the war period, and then after World War II. And that's the way we're going to break this 20th century up. And so, as we will see, 2 world wars, communism, Nazism, as I said before. Revolutions and wars are but one aspect of the human struggle that we're going to talk about. And this is something I talk about with kids a lot. And it's something, you know, when you're talking to a high school kid, and this high school kid has not been through Vietnam, doesn't really know war, like some of us in this room do, some of us in watching TV do. What's very important is, with this human struggle, we have art movements as well. Because, this is very important, the pens, the paintbrushes, the bows, the keys are all weapons in this struggle. It is the struggle to continue the voice of humanity. And some of the greatest works of art are going to be the ones that have been created during war, during political upheaval, during human struggle, right? And so the 20th century, we have so many little subdivisions here. Minimalism, Expressionism, Impressionism, Dadaism, Futurism, op art, pop art. I mean, you can go on forever with the divisions in the 20th century. There are so many. There are so many interesting influences. And I, in 4 or 5 segments, have to give you everything. And so I'm going to give you a taste of many, many of these subdivisions of the 20th century. We'll stop certainly in France with Impressionism. You know, everybody loves Impressionist art. What's wrong with it? Nothing. We will see, though, how it was very modern. And then we will go to Expressionism, Primitivism, Neoclassicism, right? And we will also see some of the great works of visual art as well. One goes right along with the other. And I tell you, the first decade of this 20th century is going to destroy over 500 years of artistic principle. And this is what I find so amazing, and I love to talk about. I could spend hours on the first decade of the 20th century. It fascinates me. It absolutely fascinates me. And as we progress on into World War I, we will see these tensions and these emotions will be right within the music, art, theater, and dance. All within it. You can see it all happening, all of the explosions. Okay? So, well, what about music? Okay? What about music? Let's talk about the characteristics of music, and of course I will bring in art as we go. And as a matter of fact, as we talk about the characteristics of 20th century music, we'll also bring in art just very, very naturally. I'll scroll this back later, okay? Characteristics of 20th century music. First of all, you have to say that, especially what the quote I read from you from Mr. Copland, is that composers of the new generation of the 20th century were fighting not only the romantic past, but the romanticism within themselves, you see. And turning away from the 19th century spirit was really everywhere. Okay? We're going away from the subjective and the grandiose. We're going away from the pathos and the heaven-storming passion, right? And we saw it all, didn't we? We saw Berlioz, we saw Puccini. This is what I'm talking about. None of this romantic landscape and picture book loveliness, right? Artists of the Impressionists are going to go outside and we're going to do something new and interesting, right? So we're going to look at a lot of different things here. We will see that the 20th century music will have many influences. First of all, non-Western influences. Non-Western influences. And as we will begin with the composer Debussy, and we'll see how his inner workings, within his music, we will see that he's using different scales that makes his music sound different. He was inspired by different instruments from the South Pacific, therefore they're going to end up in his music. So we will see a lot of this come in, non-Western influences quite a bit, and we will see that with art as well, with the painting of Gauguin and Matisse, this very primitive ideal going on here. So non-Western influences we will see quite a bit. We'll also see that harmony, right? Dissonance is going to take over. Our idea of harmony right now is C major and C minor. Okay, major is a happy key, minor is a sad key. Now things are really going to break apart, okay? We will see new chord structures that we have 11th chords, 13th chords. You'll see, you'll hear. It is a very different sound. Also, we will see that people like Stravinsky are using bitonality and polytonality, combining two keys together. Now, is that atonal? We're not quite there yet. When you combine two keys like F major and G major, it's dissonant, yes. Doesn't sound too good, but you have two tonal areas. You have F and you have G. You're just combining them. Bitonality. We also have polytonality, combining many keys together. This is all a part of the emancipation of dissonance. It is all a part of the breakdown of our traditional tonal system. Okay? Very, very important. We will also see that rhythmic aspects of music, very complex, very, very complex, irregular meters. We're starting to see that a little bit with the Romantic composers and especially with the post-Romantic composers. But remember, for example, Mozart's Symphony No. 40. Da-da-dum, da-da-dum, da-da-da-da, da-da-dum, da-da-dum, ba-da-da-dum. And the conductor is doing this for 20 minutes in the first movement. Up, right, down, up. 1, 2. Now, with something like Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring, which we are going to be listening to, my friends, you have meters that change every measure with an unbelievable amount of speed. So in the last part of The Rite of Spring, if you just watch my hand, I'll show you what I mean. So here's Mozart, 1, 2, 1, 2. And now here's Stravinsky, The Rite of Spring. And this is successive measures. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 2. Okay? All right, now you try to be the performer. And basically, it's all flashing in front of your eyes, and a lot of it has to be done by memory. But we're looking at great irregularity here. Now, why? Well, we have to look into the piece of music. It is a primitive piece, it's a barbaric piece of music. And that's what his goal is here. Okay? So irregularity is going to certainly be in the forefront, and we're going to see this, and this will be a huge part of 20th century music. Okay, we also have the rise of technology, and we know that the 20th century certainly is the age of the machine, and music is no exception. We'll see computer music, electronic music comes in the 40s and 50s, and eventually we're going to have a total liberation of sound. Anything goes. Anything goes. You take a garbage can lid, you throw it on the floor. If the composer says do it, you do it. All right? So anything goes. Do you know what I have had to do as a violist so far? I have had to scream. I have had to play my viola and speak Native American, I believe. I have had to, and this was very difficult. This took a lot of coordination. I had to play my viola, and then I had to, remember when you were a little kid, and at Thanksgiving you do the crystal glasses, and they make these high pitches? Well, I had one glass tuned to F sharp, one glass tuned to A sharp, and I had to whistle C sharp. And that was part of what I had to do as a violist. Oh yeah, and then I had to bang on a little cymbal that was this big. So I wasn't just a violist, I was many things. And it was very, very scary. So we really are asked to do different things as well. And it's all very interesting. It really is. I just did a piece just recently, and it was a piece by a Chinese composer, actually Taiwanese composer, who had us all, the entire orchestra, the strings sat there and intoned Chinese words while the solo violinist played. It was a really interesting sound. And really, the audience really liked it. And at first I was thinking, oh God, they're all going to leave. But it really was very interesting. So anything goes. And we will see as we go along, you're not going to be that blown over. I'm not going to go into some real crazy stuff that we could go into, but I'm not going to do that. So where are we going to start? We will start in France. That is where we are going to start.1874 is the year. 1874. There was an exhibition in Paris. Claude Monet had a painting there. It was called Impression, Sunrise. And a critic who was at the show called the entire show an exhibition of the Impressionists. Okay, to us, but that really had not a good connotation to it. So let us all look at what I'm talking about. This is Monet's Sunrise, as you can see on your screen. Now, there it is on my left. Okay, Impression, Sunrise. Marcello, what are we looking at?
Sunrise.
Sunrise, very good. What else? What do you see in the middle there?
Boat, sky.
Boat, sky,
Color.
colors. What colors?
Orange, blue, red.
Is it in focus? No, it's not in focus. Does anybody dislike this? No, it's immediately very attractive, I think. And a lot of us probably have this in our living rooms, or Impressionist art is very, very, very popular. And you know, when you're talking to people about Impressionism, that's not really modern. You know, that's not really modern, but it is modern. And again, this is 1874, so we're backing up a little bit. But this was the birth of Impressionism. Impressionism, okay? Very, very important. And the Impressionist painters such as Monet, Renoir, Pissarro, Degas emphasized light, color, and atmosphere. Light, color, and atmosphere. Now, the painting that we were looking at, does that have a deep moral or message to anybody here? Other than I'd like to be that person on the boat? No, it is sensory. It affects us in that we can almost feel that atmosphere. We can feel the wind. We can see the color of the water. It immediately appeals to our senses, and that is why I think that Impressionist art is certainly very popular. Cézanne said of Monet, Monet is only an eye, but what an eye. The beauty in this painting is in the eye of the beholder, not necessarily in the painting, okay? Not necessarily in the painting. It is not what is seen, it is how it is seen. What do I mean by that? It is not what is seen, but how it is seen. What does that mean? Everybody sees things differently. Good. What else? How you describe what you're seeing. Right. Laura?
Just you personally, how you look at life and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and you look at that beauty and different.
Right. Good. Okay. What makes this painting modern is that this painting is a study of light. This painting is a study of the refraction of light on the water, on the boat. Did you notice also the shadow beyond the boat? Right? And what I think is so incredibly interesting is that the brushstroke has a lot more variety. We weren't looking at this with Mr. Delacroix, like Liberty Leading the People, right? We were looking at her, of course, as the strength of this painting. But now what we're looking at is something very different. These brushstrokes up close are very different from what they are further back. And there's a great variety within the brushstrokes. There's almost an individual rhythm going on as well. And the next time you're looking at a piece of Impressionist art, if you're at the Chicago Institute, go right up close and look at those brushstrokes. Those brushstrokes are modern. These Impressionist works are modern. And it is also interesting that the science of optics right now, we're making great advances within this science. Okay, so what we have here is something really interesting. Now how? What Monet is to color, everybody say this, what Monet is to color, Debussy is to sound. Aha. So somehow we're going to directly relate what Monet is to color, Debussy is to sound. Okay. Now, there was another movement, and this movement was literary in Paris during the time of the Impressionists. And I will read to you a writer's take on what symbolism is. What has been called symbolism can quite simply be summarized as the desire common to several familiar poets to take back from music what they had given it. The secret of this movement is nothing other than this. We were nourished on music, and our literary minds only dreamt of extracting from language virtually the same effects that music caused on our nervous system. Now, the symbolist poets, very important. What Monet did with color, the symbolist poets did with words. So, if you look back at that sunrise, right, it is out of focus, it is vague, it is suggestion. It doesn't maul you over, it lightly suggests this impression, this sunrise. And that's the same thing with the symbolist poets. With words, they are suggesting, with no time or space or even possibly reality, an interesting piece of literature. Baudelaire, Mallarmé, important symbolist poets. We're going to briefly discuss Mallarmé as an important symbolist poet because Mr. Debussy composed a piece of music that we're going to listen to that is based on a piece of symbolist poetry. Symbolist poetry. Okay? So, keep that in mind as well. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Now, with music, what Monet is with color, and Mallarmé is with words, Debussy is with sound. Claude Debussy, 1862 to 1918. 1862 to 1918. All that is precious and admirable in Debussy's art, all that makes his a profound originality, is new sensitivity, a sensitivity marvelously intense and delicate, a sensitivity towards nature which lets him evoke the soul of things without descriptive anxiety. And that is from Watkins. Debussy's music, this French music, is a reaction against Wagner. And I will say that again and again, certainly, that Wagner's influence you could not escape. So even if you didn't like him, you couldn't escape him. And that certainly is the case with Mr. Debussy. His music, sensuous imagery rather than emotional effect. And what he has are musical equivalents to this verbal technique of the symbolist poets. He was very closely associated with symbolism. I don't think he liked being associated as much with the Impressionists as he was with the symbolists. Debussy attended an exhibition of percussion instruments of the Far East. Now, exhibitions came through Paris like crazy. You know, I would have loved to have lived during this time to see all of these exhibitions. So these percussion instruments from the Far East desperately influenced Debussy. He went to this exposition and he heard their sound. And he wanted to duplicate it in some way, whether it be within the orchestra or be within the piano. Somewhere, somehow, he was going to do it. And so he was very influenced by the instruments of Java, of Borneo, all these exotic places. So there you go. There's a non-Western influence of Mr. Debussy. He used different scales, okay? Different kinds of scales. Scales that are not major minor, okay? And that makes it also sound a little non-Western. But the reason why Debussy's music is so accessible is that he combines the romantic element with all of this non-functional 20th century stuff. How's that for a bad teacher, right? Romantic element. So he has that melody we love, but on the other side, he has all of this non-functionality within his music. And he's a very interesting composer to look at. On the surface, from the record to our ear, yeah, it sounds really pretty. But when you look right inside of it, it's very 20th century. And it's the same thing with Monet. You look at it, you love it. But when you look really close at it, it is very modern. And it did shock the world a bit. Okay?